Hi there, my name is Gladys Famoriyo, and thank you for joining me on this session. As I mentioned, I'm going to be talking about how to survive, thrive, and maximize a challenging situation. Now, we all know that what's going on at the moment is just like, there's just so much going on, and never in the life of any of us did we think that we would find ourselves in this situation. I mean, can you imagine last Christmas, we would have never thought that, 2020 was, we kept saying 2020 is going to be the year that we're going to be doing some phenomenal things. And, here we are, all of a sudden life seems to have happened, with all the different things going on around us. And so, you know what, after my own personal journey, as well as seeing so many people going through difficult situations, a few years ago, I wrote several books around helping people deal with the real life situations that they're facing. In fact, I call those unscripted life moments. And that's what we're going to be talking over this series. It's really about giving you some of the skills, some tools, some resources to support you, so that when you find yourself in those kind of situations, you've got some resources to pull on. So just for anyone who might be joining me, my name's Gladys Famoriyo. Just a little bit of information about myself. I'm an author, coach, speaker. I've written a number of books, some of them bounce back, which is going to be one of the things we're talking about today. And you might have seen some other titles: Overcoming Emotional Baggage, A Woman's Guide to Living the Abundant Life. Yeah, I've got a story to tell on that one. If you want to, people say, well, why do you write these books? Well, I write them, number one, out of my own personal experiences, as well as experiences that other people face as well. So another one, Healing Discouraged Heart. Again, getting back on track when life lets you down. I'm sure you've had situations whereby you found yourself like, oh, what's going on? Why me? And so on and so forth. So, I wrote that one. Then there's also Quit Hiding, Start Living. Now, this is a really useful book for anybody who might be struggling with the concept of unforgiveness. So perhaps you've been hurt from a life experience, broken relationships, you had issues with abuse, and you just don't know. You've kind of like, you've got like basically a no entry sign on your heart, and you just don't know how to get yourself back out there. Not necessarily for relationships, as in, partners and whatnot. I'm talking about, it could be friends, could be family and whatnot. So that's a really useful tool to help you. I call it Forgive and Love Again. Okay, so, you know what, as I said, it's all about how to survive, thrive, and maximize our current situation. And you know what, one of the things I've discovered is that when we're going through different situations and we don't have the necessary tools, we don't have the know-how, we don't have the resources, we don't have something to support us on those journeys, we are going to, you might find yourself struggling a little bit. Now, from what I've been hearing from a lot of people, just through the nature of the work that I do, in fact, by the way, I kind of wear two hats. One of them is around promoting emotional and mental health within individuals, communities, groups, organizations, etc. Now, the other side of me is Grace the Author. So you can just Google Grace the Author or Facebook Grace the Author, and you find some other things I do around helping people generate multiple incomes. But I'm going to put that one on the side. Okay, so we're going to be talking just around emotional and mental health wellness, which is something that I'm really, really passionate about, having, my own personal experiences and the women that I've worked with for the last 25 years now. So that's basically, a bit of background. And as I said, for example, in the last 24 hours, actually, let's backtrack a little bit. In the last 48 hours, I've attended a virtual funeral. I've had the news of a loved one whose mum sadly passed away. Just before I jumped onto this Facebook Live, I was told of somebody who lost a family member. And this is kind of like the how it's unfolding in the lives of a number of us, especially in this day and time. Now, unfortunately, when things like that happen, it's like, having, me personally losing my dad in 2007, and then losing my younger sister, Deborah, just over a year ago, I believe it is, if memory serves me well. In fact, it's going to be 2 years this year. And, you know, with so many things going on, these unscripted life moments, what do we then do to support us on that journey? How can we stay, for the lack of a better word, sane? Which is really the real thing here. How do we stay sane and keep forging ahead with our purpose, with our callings, with our goals, with our relationships, and all the different things that we do? How do we keep forging ahead when it feels like sometimes you're just getting blown left, right, and center? Now, if that's where you are personally, and it may not necessarily be that you've had loss, as in somebody's passed away, or it could be loss of a broken relationship. It could be loss of a lifelong dream or a goal. It could be as a result of disappointment, or perhaps there's been a situation that's prolonged, maybe it could be like prolonged sickness, and a whole raft of other things. Life just has a way of just throwing so many things in our direction. And you know what? It's really about, as I said earlier on, one of the key things I found in all my years of research, in all my personal experiences and the work that I do with helping people, one of the key things that I've found that helps people get through situations like this is around mindsets. What goes on here? The mind. Now, the mind is such a powerful thing. And if we, it's just like, I have this philosophy. I mean, you've all heard it before: garbage in, garbage out. So if you feed your mind with a lot of negativity, doom and gloom, and so on and so forth, guess what? You're going to kind of start demonstrating that in one way or the other. You're going to find yourself, saying a whole load of nonsense, basically, and acting out in a corresponding manner. However, if you start to feed yourself with positive things, even when you are going through challenging situations, it is actually possible, to stay with a positive mindset, a positive outlook, with a glass half full. But I also find that, after doing some research and reading quite a number of books around it, there's that concept called, I believe it's positive psychology, whereby, helping people, deal positively with some of the challenges they're facing. Now, you can have a whole group of people in a boat, or let's not call it a boat, but you can have a whole group of people facing similar circumstances. Similar, I mean, no story is the same, so we can't say it's exactly the same, but similar circumstances. But in one camp, you'll get some people who really kind of like struggle to overcome that situation, who struggle to get over it, and who struggle to get back into some form of normality, if we can call it, after that situation's happened. But yeah, you get on the flip side some other people who go through sometimes really harrowing situations. And I've come across a number of people like that. And for some reason, somehow or the other, they're able to do what I call flipping the adversity on its head and then bouncing back and going off to do phenomenal things with their lives. Some of them, the course of their life changes because the situation they went through became the reason why, in fact, let me backtrack. It became the reason why, or the thing they decided to spend the rest of their life doing because of that situation. So, I mean, I won't go too ahead of myself, but, so I just wanted to keep you in your mind here. Two camps of people: individuals who sometimes struggle, with being able to move forward. And then on the other hand, people who sometimes seem to, for the lack of a better word, it feels like that, they're made of bones of steel, and, they just go out there and just, overcome the situation that they've been through. Now, please hear my heart here. We're not putting anybody down. This is just based on research in terms of how people handle situations. We're not putting anybody down, regardless of the camp that you might fit in. Put all that aside. Okay, but what we try to do, and this is what I've had to do for my own personal life, and as I said, for the people that I work with, and that's how the book Bounce Back came about, is because I wanted to understand what was it that helped that second group of people move forward with their lives, flip the adversity on its head, make something positive come out of that situation, regardless of how bad the situation is. And that started me on a journey a few years ago. In my work as a coach, I've been doing that, lost track now, let's just say 23 years or thereabouts. That's been conservative because I was coaching way before I actually started doing it officially. But some of the things that I've actually discovered with individuals is the fact that, as I said, we kind of handle situations differently. And when we don't necessarily have the support mechanism, when we don't have the necessary knowledge and the tools to support us, sometimes that could really be a struggle to move forward. And so, as I said, on my own personal journey, when I was having my moments, in fact, let me, remind you of Healing a Discouraged Heart, which is actually written when my dad passed away. Up until that point, I'd never really gone through any form of major trauma in terms of grief, in particular, loss of, a loved one. And, I was a Christian, and I still am, by the way, and I thought, hey, I just want to say hello to somebody there. Okay. Thanks for joining us. Okay, Jenny. Okay. So, so it was just fantastic whereby, I thought I had my act together. I thought everything was A-okay until, as I said, it felt like the wall was pulled from underneath me when my dad passed away. And I found myself, asking so many questions like, why? Why me? Why now? Why him? And I discovered a lot of negativity on the inside of me. I was angry with God. I was angry with my dad for going. Can you imagine being angry with the person who passed away? But anyway, angry with my dad. I was angry with so many things. And I discovered that actually I had a whole load of unresolved issues that I hadn't dealt with. Hence, when we wrote Overcoming Emotional Baggage, dealing with issues, I wrote the book, and I know why I wrote the book. Okay, so I realized that I had a whole load of things. And so that kind of like started me on a journey, to, okay, so the way I reacted to that situation was quite bad, actually. I was down and out for a while. I just couldn't grapple with the concept of death and never seeing anybody again and whatnot. And you know what? From that whole journey, as I was coming out of that situation, I felt led to go back to some of the basics that I picked up in the Bible from my very, very early days. Now, some of the concepts we all know in the Bible, some of the principles, and I had to really go back in there and really fortify my mind, because somehow in my mind, remember I talked about earlier on mindsets. Mindset is such a powerful thing. So in my mind, I was this like untouchable person wrapped up in spiritual bubble wrap, okay? Spiritual bubble wrap where nothing and no one can touch me. And so there's me skipping along my journey until one day, boom, Dad passed away. And then I actually discovered, well, actually the things that I kind of thought I had here weren't really, solid biblical truths, I would say. They were biblical truths. And I had to then find my way around. So that was kind of like the journey around healing a discouraged heart. But coming full circle from that, as I said earlier on, I realized that there were some things that some people embodied that enabled them. And one of my favorites is, the likes of Nelson Mandela. I mean, come on, 27 years in isolation, in a prison, and you come out on the other side, forgive, lead the people, and do all the great things that you've done. It's like, the mind boggles. But that's a classic example. There's examples in the Bible as well of people who've been through really adverse situations, and they've come out again stronger, more powerful, and they've gone on to do phenomenal things. And so I started doing some research, because one of the things I was discovering was that when I spoke to people, especially using maybe biblical examples, people were like, oh, yeah, right, but, that was in the Bible, kind of like, that was like back then, like they had it easier. No, so some people just thought, that was, some people just thought, yeah, what, that's just way out there because it's like in the Bible, so it's nothing to do with me. But actually, I started looking for individuals in my world today who were who've been through some really challenging situations, who were able to turn that situation around. Remember, I talked about the camp of people. So those people who just seem to be like, well, what are they on? How did they just, after that situation? And that's what so this became a book, literally an ode to my way of saluting those who I call bounce back heroes, to say, what, I salute you, and I shared their stories through the book, such as an example of a young girl called Griselda. Griselda was about 13 years old, and she lives in South America. And unfortunately, one of the days, my memory serves me right, she was either coming back from church or going to church with her family. And unfortunately, they got stopped along the way by a group of armed men. Now, she was dragged away, and unfortunately, Griselda was raped. Now, you can imagine coming back from church, a young girl, 13, the trauma. I mean, when I saw the video of her story, the trauma, just like, yeah, I could not even begin to comprehend what a 13-year-old girl, a girl who had so much going for her, a phenomenal future, what could have, how that had an impact on her. And I saw this video. I was an ambassador. In fact, I still am an ambassador for Compassion UK. And I saw the video of her story. And she was just, as I said, to me, she's just one of the greatest bounce back heroes I've come across, because this young lady went on to turn her life around. Now, am I saying this was easy for her? Absolutely not. Through the grace of God, she got in touch, an organization got in touch with her, and they were able to help her deal with the physical and the spiritual and emotional aspect of the trauma itself. And as a result of that whole experience, this young lady now decided she was going to go into university, and she was going to go and study, I believe it's social work, but hopefully, Griselda, forgive me if I got it wrong, but she wanted to study either psychology or social work, something along those lines. And her goal was to simply help other people. I've seen somebody else join. Hello there, Yinka. Great to have you on board. Okay, so basically what she wanted to do was help other people who've been through a similar situation. Now, remember, it happened to her when she was 13. By the time she was 16, this was her mindset. I want to grow up and help other people who've been through situations like myself. Now, for me, that was a phenomenal turnaround story, because Griselda, 13, and be able to find in her heart, to be able to forgive those who hurt her, is just a phenomenal story. Now, as I said, the whole purpose of these talks that I'm wanting to do is wanting to unpick all these lives and some of the principles that these people put in place that enabled them to bounce back after their challenging life situations. I'm just going to say hello to somebody else. Say, hey, everyone, great to have you on board. Okay, so what is it that these people had in place that helped them turn their situations around? And that's what we want to explore. By the way, those of you who are watching, feel free to add your comments. If you have questions, put them in there. Perhaps you've had some moments of your own where you're thinking, where you're thinking, I don't get it, by all means, put your comments in there and we'll try and tackle them. This is actually an interactive session. We're not, it's not the Grace show. So feel free to add your comments and then we'll talk about that. Okay, so as I said, it's about how we move forward with our challenging situations. Now, I started off earlier on saying, in the last from Thursday, as I said, on Thursday, I attended a virtual funeral of a dear friend. Yesterday, I discovered another friend. In fact, I call her friend. She's basically like my younger sister in the Lord, who lost her mum. Today, just before I jumped on the call, somebody else has lost somebody. And I've discovered that actually this is unfortunately the world that we're living in right now. So I want to use this forum to just bolster everybody, to give you some of the skills, as I said, to support you wherever you might find yourself. Now, you may not have lost somebody, but it might be something else. For example, there's a lot of people who have been made redundant, don't have jobs, don't have money, don't have, just so many things going on. And this really is going to be a forum where I'm going to be sharing some things with you. Okay, so I just want to spend the rest of the time that we have today just sharing with you some principles around how can we start this journey of making something positive come out of our experiences. So remember, the themes are surviving, thriving, and maximizing challenging situations, or our current climate that we're facing right now. So most of us at the moment, depending on where you are in the world, you're either on lockdown, you've been told you can't go out, or, if you go out, it's for, for food purposes and so on and so forth. And so we're all in this kind of like, we found ourselves working from home, living at home, and, in a situation where we've never really faced. So it's kind of, unprecedented, basically. We haven't had that situation before. So what can we start to do to start surviving? Now, there's lots of things that are going to be out there, and I will share these over the next few talks. There, that we're made of a tripartite being. So when I say that, I mean your spirit, soul, and body. So over these talks, I will be touching on all those areas, because whether we like it or not, you can't separate all of them. They're all kind of linked together. So you might hear me talk about exercise another time. You might hear me talk about your spirituality. And I'm always going to be throwing that in there, because for me personally, and I'm sure for some of you who might be watching as well, what's kept my boat afloat, that's how I like to say it sometimes, what's kept my boat afloat has been my faith in God. Without that, I don't know what would have happened to Grace. I have no clue what would have happened. And I always say this to people, while we're on that subject, what's keeping your boat afloat? Now, some people sometimes say friends and family and so on, and that's fantastic. It's great to have a support mechanism. But what happens when the friends and the family are the ones who hurt us or who disappoint us? Where do we go? What do we do? Now, that's just a thought for another day. We won't go there for today. But, it's always just, use this time to think about what's keeping your boat afloat. So I'm going to be talking about the spirituality aspect of things. I'm going to be talking about the emotional and mental, call it your soul, because your soul's made up of spirit. Your soul's made up of your mind, will, and emotions. So we're going to be talking about that. And then also the physical being, so making sure that you are getting adequate exercise. Now, some people say, well, I haven't got a garden, I haven't got this. Trust me, sometimes, I'm fortunate to have a mini gym in my house, because I'm just like that. I love fitness. However, the other day, I just couldn't be asked to go into the gym. I was like, I can't be bothered to go to my own gym. It's like downstairs. Anyway, so what I started doing, okay, you know what? I decided I was going to just watch one of my favorite programs and then jog around in a room. And believe it or not, I ended up doing over 12,500 steps, which was, I think, when I looked at my little thingy bob here, it told me I'd done about 5 miles in my little room watching TV. So there's lots of things you can do. You don't necessarily have to go out there. Okay, but I want to leave you some principles before we jump off the call. I just want to, or Facebook Live, I want to leave you some principles in terms of moving forward, surviving, thriving, and maximizing your challenging situation. The first thing, as I said before, is thinking about how you can flip the situation positively on its head. Now, I talked about the story of Griselda. Now, again, you might think, oh, that's so far away. She's whatever. Okay, let me tell you another story of a client that I actually worked with. And her story just, in fact, there are 2 stories I'm going to share quickly today. One lady in particular had been suffering from lupus. Her name's Ruth. I don't know if Ruth is listening, but I have her full permission to disclose this. In fact, it's in the book. She wrote a whole section for me in the book. Now, Ruth has suffered with, shall I say, with lupus for a number of years. In fact, it was about 20 years when I met Ruth. And well, by the time I met Ruth, Ruth was kind of like in a situation where she was unwell. And she told me that when she becomes unwell, it's so bad. And some of you might know about lupus. Lupus is life-threatening. And it's an autoimmune disease that kind of causes chaos with our systems in our bodies. And so basically it's like your body attacking itself, basically. And on this particular situation, oh, there's somebody there. Hello, Hitesh. Great to see you. Okay, so in this particular situation, Ruth, after going through this cycle over 20 years of, doing so well at work and then taking steps back, through the lupus and then being hospitalized for a long period of time, then having to learn to walk again. You can imagine this cycle just going around for 20 years, get so far, one step forward, almost like 10 steps backwards. And then you have to learn to walk each time. Anyway, so on this particular situation, she decided she was not going to do things the way she's always done before. And I suspect, just like any one of us who are going through a particular dark time or have a dark cloud over your head, it's quite easy to want to just roll under the duvet, put the duvet over your head and just like not want to engage. You don't want to, meet up with your friends. You don't want to do all the things you used to be passionate about because of this one thing that's just been a pain in the derriere or the what. Okay, so, but Ruth decided on this situation, she wasn't going to have a pity party. She wasn't going to do things the way she'd done in the past. She wanted to do something differently. And that's where we connected. Ruth now contacted me and said, okay, you know what? Here's my situation. I'm in hospital. I'm well, blah, blah, blah. But I want you to help me write a book. Now, I was like, so run that by me again. You're in hospital. And she told the whole story. And I'm like, what? Okay. So I was like, fantastic. Okay, so if that's, let's do this. And would you believe it? Ruth and I worked together. We had to obviously find ways, obviously some days she's better than some other days. But, over a period of I think it was about 9 to 12 months, myself and Ruth worked together and Ruth got her book done while she was unwell. I'm not saying that Ruth did this when she was that hale and hearty and running around, whatever. Ruth decided, she made a mental shift and said, this time I'm going to make something positive come out of this situation. I'm going to flip it on its head. So guess what? Ruth wrote her book. Now, to be honest, that was literally the start of Ruth's recovery journey because I don't know what happened in her psyche, even though I know as a woman of faith, I know that there's power of prayer because I always pray for my clients. They have to succeed. They just have to succeed. Okay, so I pray for my clients. And, before we know it, Ruth was back on form. She was walking. We got her book published. In fact, next time I will bring her book into here so I can share it with you. But Ruth was back on form. Now, Ruth was able to flip the adversity she was facing on its head and produced a phenomenal book, but she didn't just stop there. Ruth went on to then launch a consultancy and a business around this one book. Okay, she became a motivational speaker. She was asked to speak. Her story, was showcased in her church's, their national newspaper. Her story was just a phenomenal turnaround because everybody knew about her situation. And, I'm leaving certain bits of the story here because she also came along to a weekend healing retreat that we ran as well. And basically, by the time she got home and she saw her consultant again, they basically, called her a walking miracle, and they don't need to see her again. Her story was just phenomenal. And again, this is an example of somebody, it started with a mindset where she said, you know what? I've been down here for 20 years. I've done this. I want something different. I want to make something positive. Now, today, Ruth has 2 books. She's an author of 2 books and she is skipping along on her journey. Now, for me, that was a classic example of flipping adversity on its head and making something positive come out of what looked like a dire situation because, from the medication, all the kind of things that goes along with lupus. She was really, really struggling. So again, this is a situation whereby perhaps maybe you've been through some challenging times, maybe now, maybe in the past, or it may happen in the future, because unfortunately we live on this world and it's like up and down, up and down. It could vary somewhat. And it's just for us to just understand that even though we're going through the valleys, okay, I lost my word saying that you're going through the valley time, it doesn't mean it's the end of the story. We can still make something positive, and we don't have to wait till we're back on the mountain tops before we say, okay, that's it, I'm ready now. Because you know what, for some people it never happens. That mountaintop opportunity does not happen. And so it's really for us to make that mind shift to say, you know what, I'm going to make something positive come out of this. So I want to throw the question to you, thinking about all this stuff around COVID-19, boo-hoo to you. Okay, so going through that whole COVID-19 malarkey and the impacts that it's having on people, and the changes. And my heart does go out to all the families, all the people who've been affected in one way or the other, all the NHS workers who are working out there, and all the other people, frontline people, key workers who are doing phenomenal jobs just to keep the countries, wherever you are, going. I salute you all as bounce back heroes, because that's what you all are. I'll give you your little clap now. You're doing a phenomenal job. And so as you who are watching now, I just wanted to get you to think about, what are you going to do to try and flip this adversity on its head? Yeah, okay, you might not think it's an adversity. It's a situation where perhaps in our lifetime we may never experience this again. We're all homebound if you have to work from home, or some of us may have to go out. But what are you going to do to flip this situation positively and make something good come out of it? Now, I shared with you the story of Ruth. You may not necessarily have to write a book, but you might decide in this time you're going to take care of your emotional well-being or your physical state. Some people, including myself, are like, okay, you know what? I want to do more exercise and lose some weight and get ready for summer, because the summer's coming in Jesus' name. It's coming. It's coming. Okay, so, what are you going to do? For some people, they're going to learn to do something different. You might want to learn to touch type. Someone says they want to write a book. You go, Yinka. I'm going to hold you to that. Okay, I got your number. I'm going to hold you to that. Okay, so write a book for some people. It's about writing books. For some people, we've got a man who we saw on the news the other day who ran a marathon in his garden. We've got people who are learning a new skill, a new tool. I'm reading more. I'm doing a lot more things. And I've also actually launched one of my lifelong goals right in the epicenter of this whole thing going on. I've launched an online academy for women because I just decided, you know what, I'm going to make something positive come out of this situation. So, it's about you. What are you going to do to flip this situation on its head? What can you do in your world, whether it be for yourself, for other people, and whatnot? It's about keeping something at the end of in your mind, and set a real goal, but not just goals. Okay, so here's Coach Grace coming into play here now. When you talk about goals, sometimes we get fixated on the goal. It's like the goal, the goal, the goal. The goal's great, and I always encourage people to have goals, but if you don't have a system behind it to help you reach that goal, guess what? It ain't happening. Okay, so I'm going to use Yinka's example. He wants to write a book. Now, we can say, yay, till the cows come home, but until you get pen to paper or start typing on a computer, nothing's going to happen. Okay, and not just type on the computer one time, because it's the increments of little habits that ends up making that goal happen. In fact, I'm reading a fantastic book at the moment called Atomic Habits. I can't remember the guy's name, but it's called Atomic Habits. If I find the link, I will send it to you. It is mind shifting. Okay, it will change your mind when it comes to achieving your goals. But anyway, that's free of charge. I'll throw that one out there. But we all need systems in place. So if you want to do exercise, if you want to learn a skill, if you want to do this, do that, you need to have that goal in mind, but you need to make sure that you've got some system. So for example, I would say to Yinka, if you want to write a book, I would challenge you to, write maybe 1,000 words a day. Now, if you do that for 30 days, that's 30,000 words. That's literally your non-fiction book here. Okay, so I see someone says, I think the challenge is coming to the place where we feel mentally or emotionally ready to be vulnerable enough to go to the public. Fantastic point, Yinka, about feeling ready to go or being vulnerable to go into the public. Now, I have an answer for that one. The reality is, and I shared this earlier on about, and I don't want to make it sound doom or gloom or anything like that. In fact, 2 points I'm going to raise. First and foremost is the way I see things. I see that we've all been given a jar of oil, or call it your talents, your know-how, your skills, and whatever. This is mine, okay, and you've got yours. When I withhold mine, as in I don't share it with humanity, I don't share it with people, my philosophy is simple. Someone somewhere doesn't get to experience the God in you or the God in me. Okay, so when I withhold that, somebody doesn't benefit from that. So, so sometimes that is a thing that makes me, when I start to share some of my own stories, I'm not doing today because I want to give my bounce back heroes a shout out, the Roofs of the world, the Griseldas, I'm giving you shout outs. Okay, so when I start to, of course I can understand that, sometimes depending on the story, you're like, people are going to know my business and, all that kind of stuff. But for me, when I push beyond that and see the greater good of what a book can do in the lives of other people, guess what? I will miss a few key life moments so that I can achieve that. Now, let me give you an example. When I wrote the book, Healing Discouraged Heart, I actually wrote this while I was propped up in bed, still grieving for my dad. And, I was in fact, I called it a living book because as I was writing it, the tears were just pouring down my face because it's like, this hurts. Why am I doing this? But something on the inside of me just kept thinking, someone somewhere is going through this. And if they get this book, it's going to make all the difference to them. So you know what? I persevered through the pain, and I actually shared some of my own issues around even my anger with God. Now, some of the folk in my Christian world are probably thinking, what did you just say? Yes, I got angry with God. In fact, I turned my back on him. I didn't go to church for a couple of weeks. I didn't read my Bible. I didn't pray for a while because it's like he did me wrong kind of thing until I changed my mindsets and got a revelation that actually I'm the one who's got a few things wrong. But that's for another story, another day. But I wrote that. And you know what? This is the most powerful thing. It took a lot of effort, a lot of pain to write that book. But one day after the book was published in 2012, I got a single email from one lady who said, thank you so much for writing that book, because since I read that book, there have been fewer tears. Now, when I first got that, I was crying like, oh my gosh. And so, Yinka, this is one of the reasons why I'm saying that, yes, sometimes we may want to withhold for whatever reasons. And to be honest, if you need support around helping you package your story in a way that doesn't make you feel vulnerable, get in touch. Send me a message, connect with me. I'm a guru at that. I help people with that a lot because I do understand that some things are not necessarily to be out for the public domain and some things can be shared. And how can you share it in a way that would still be a blessing to other people? So if that's something that you need support on, by all means, get in contact. Okay. So when we talk about that, so that's the first thing. So it's about me sharing what I have with other people to support them. Now, the second thing is, and this is it, I mentioned earlier on, as I said, I don't want to sound a bit doom and gloom, but a friend of mine passed away the other day. In fact, not the other day, about 4 weeks ago. Her virtual funeral was on Thursday. And she lived a full life, and I celebrate her life. She did phenomenal. She packed so much in those late 40s. She was in that time that, she squeezed every ounce out of life. And so, we all pray that we live ripe old ages, we live long, we live healthy and all that, but it's not a guarantee. My sister passed away 2 years ago this year, and she was, what was she again? I think she was 43 when she passed away. And so for me, I am so focused on my purpose. And this has just been my way of life. In particular, since when Dad passed away, it's always been my focus, because I realized that I can't guarantee tomorrow. I want to be here till I'm like 199. Slight exaggeration. Okay, I want to be around. However, I'm not guaranteed that. And on top of that, and I'm not just talking about, the morbid side of things, but another thing is, we have the opportunity in our moment today. You can't do anything about yesterday, and you don't have the power over tomorrow, but you have the power on today. So it's about maximizing the today. And so, I'm hoping that helps, Yinka, in terms of your answer, in terms of going public. There is a way of structuring your message so that, you can go out there and share that message. But trust me, I believe there's at least, at least one, even though there's more. I only shared one testimonial, but there are loads more people who would just breathe again by reading your story or reading your book or your principles on how to do whatever it is. Okay, so that's number one. And that kind of leads us, the first thing I talked about was really around flipping adversity on its head. So in this climate, how can you maximize it? So somebody's talked about book. I've talked about exercising. I need to get fitter, because this time of the year I would have been preparing for my 100 miles Prudential ride. In about 4 weeks, I'll have gone to maybe the Isle of Wight to do my randonnée, which is like 72 miles up on some of the most steepest hills in yeah, I would have been doing all of that, but I can't do that. But thankfully I have a bike in the house, so I can keep doing that. So I need to motivate myself to keep doing that. So over to you. You need to think about what you're going to be doing to help you get through this situation, this current climate. Now, the second thing, I'm keeping my eye on time, but the second thing is to keep the end in mind. And that kind of follows quite nicely from what I was talking about earlier on about the 2 reasons why we can't procrastinate. Basically, we really need to maximize the time that we have. It's about staying focused with, why we're here. Now, some people may think, well, we're just here, I'm just an accident, or I'm just going along with the flow. Well, actually, I beg to differ. Every single one of us has a purpose here. I really do believe that. God's word tells us that, he created us for such a time as this. We have, he's numbered our days. He formed us in our mother's womb. There's so many scriptures that talk about that. So I'm completely sold out. I know that every single one of us, regardless of how high, how tall, how wide, what our circumstances have been, our past, it's got nothing to do with that. We all have something. Now, remember I talked about the jar of oil? We all have something of our talents, gifts, skills, whatever it is that we have to offer to other people. And I think one of the things that helps me personally, and I help my clients do time and time again, is keeping the end in mind. Keeping the end in mind. Now, one of the greatest people who illustrated this point was Stephen Covey, who wrote The 7 Habits of a Highly Effective People. If you haven't read that book, again, another book, you can see I'm a book lover here. I'm trying to read a book a week. I'm getting there, okay? All right, so 7 Habits of a Highly Effective Person by Steve Covey. Fantastic book that would help you when it comes to taking action and being more proactive. But one of the key things he talked about is, one of the things he talked about is keeping the end in mind. So if you think about fast forward, so maybe I'm thinking, Granny Grace, my hair's all turned all grey, No wrinkles. I'm still looking quite hot. Okay, I'm not changing. Okay, but the hair maybe a few grey streaks. I'll allow a few grey streaks and nothing else. Okay, so I'm in my little chair, watching the world go by. I'm like 99, about to get my 100-year-old card from the Queen or whoever's in power. Not the Queen. It might just be the King at that point. And I'm thinking about my life in the future. What is it that I want to be thinking? What was it that when I look back, I want to think about as taking place in my life? So I guess one way of looking at it is thinking about the end of your life. What would you have achieved? What do you want to achieve? And keep that as a motivator to support you in moving forward. Now, for me personally, as I said, I'm a woman of faith and I'm not ashamed about it, okay? A woman of faith. And one of my things is I'm striving, and I say striving, I don't mean it like in an anxious or whatever way, but my thing is I need to get back to my daddy and hear him say, welcome and well done, good and faithful servant. And I'd want him to say, I'm proud of you because you've used your jar of oil to help other people. That's my thing, okay? I want to hear those words. And that's the thing that drives me. So when I'm sitting in my office, having the whole weekend blocked out to write a book, and yes, I do write a book in a weekend. I have, through the grace of God, I did that for Quit Hiding, Start Living. I did about, it took me about 120 hours in total. And most of it was done in one weekend. And I think in one weekend, I knocked out about 14,000, maybe even 20,000 words. And that was done. So I was so grateful for that. But yeah, it's possible. Just put your mind to it. But if all fails, you can actually decide, 1,000 words a day to 30 days, your book's done. Okay. So the second thing, as I said, is keeping that mindset, keeping the end in mind. What is it that, we don't want a life of regrets. Oh, I wish I did this. I wish I did that. But also be realistic. Okay. What can you do in this moment to maximize that? Now, there's a lot of people doing all sorts of things. Some people are exercising. Some people are learning new things. And to be honest, some people, especially speaking to some people in my world, friends, family, they're knackered. They are just tired. So their primary goal is to get their energy levels back. And that would be through resting, eating well, fortifying their bodies, exercising, and do all the necessary things. So it doesn't always have to be like some big old goal. It could just be taking care of yourself. Or as my friend tells me, be kind to yourself. Okay, so that's the second thing. Keep the end in mind. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is a determination to move forward. Now, we've talked about flipping adversity on its head. We've talked about keeping the end in mind. There has to be, the third one is about having a determination that I'm going to do this. I'm going to achieve this. Now, it could be, we can apply that concept to whether we're talking about goals, but also let me go back to Ruth's story I shared earlier on, or Griselda's story that I shared earlier on. One of the things that you would find that is common amongst a number of people who've been through adversity and then flipped it on its head, made something positive come out of it, created their life purpose around it, is the whole notion of just determination that this thing is not going to beat me down. Now, as I said, unfortunately, because of the current situation outside, with COVID-19, there's, you just need to look at the news and it's just like negative, and, there's just so much going on. And, as I said, where myself, my local group, my community, my church community, we are constantly praying that God will change this whole situation around because it's needed. We really need, we need an act of God, basically. Nothing short of an act of God and a miracle to move us forward. But speaking to you as somebody who's watching, I just want to encourage you to be determined in your mind. Be determined that you are going to get through this season and you're going to get through it well. Be determined that you're going to, when I say well, as in you're going to come out of the other side as much as you can within your power, come out of the other side positive. And if you are struggling in any particular form, get support, get help. There's lots of resources, whether it be apps, whether it be phone lines. And then by the end of this session, I'm going to put some contact details, some links, shall I say, or places where you can get some help. Please get the help that you need. If you find yourself, thinking, oh, you're feeling like really down and out on the current situation, get some help, right? Get some help. But I just want you to, as I said, find the strength within yourself to uplift yourself. Be determined. Now, if we were to take the whole climate thing currently going on at the moment, think about what you would normally do to uplift yourself. Okay, so let me share what I do. Okay, so music is a phenomenal part of my life. It's just like, I thank God for all the musicians and the people who write songs, who create music and melodies. I thank God that they didn't withhold their own jars of oil, because if they did, I don't even know what my world would be like. So music and books is like my thing. However, one of the things that I do, and I do this often, I have an old-fashioned, I'm sure it's old-fashioned, but a record player. I know it's coming back in fashion now, but a record player, and I have some LPs from back in the days. Or sometimes I have some favorite gospel music that I really, really love. And when I feel a bit of a funk coming on, like, I'm trying to get rid of all that kind of nonsense, I play the music. And I have a good old-fashioned dance in my kitchen or in my front room, or if it's my bedroom, I'm just like, yeah! In fact, one day I might just do a Facebook Live when you can see me in action. But, and I'm not doing it because I've lost my marbles. I'm doing it because that is something, a mechanism that helps me just get out of that heaviness and the funk and the depression and discouragement. If I do that, if I've had bad news, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying, like, for example, when my sister passed away, I did that, even though anyway, that's a separate story. But, I'm saying, on the day-to-day, when you get knockbacks, disappointments, setbacks, and you feel like you're down, if everything seems gloomy, the glass feels half full, half empty, and you're just like, put something in place to help you lift yourself out of that scenario. And I'm putting the onus on you. I want you to take responsibility. And if you're struggling, perhaps music is not your thing, or you're struggling to uplift yourself, get support. Call a friend. Yesterday I had a fantastic time. Three of myself and two other friends, we got on, Zoom. Thank God for Zoom, and Skype and WhatsApp and whatever. But we got on Zoom and we had a right on natter for like an hour and a half, and we just felt uplifted, because we're all isolated in our own little worlds. But but just by talking. So talking is a powerful tool. Find somebody to connect with. But as I said, be determined not to get down in the dumps. Be determined that you are going to move forward. And thanks, Ika, for making those notes there. Just be determined. And so as we round off today, I just want to remind you, just like what we're currently facing now, life is full of ups and downs. If it's not this, it will always be something else. There will always be something. And it's not a negative, outlook on life. It's not a negative confession. It is what it is. As I said, I lost Dad. I lost my sister. It's what I call unscripted life moments. It happens. But after having something short of a breakdown when Dad passed away, looking back on that situation, I was so determined, like, no, God forbid, if anything like that ever happens again, I am determined that I am going to get through it in a much more positive light, in a positive way. And I think all the books that came as a result of that, Healing Discouraged Heart, The Bouncing Back, and also the 1 Minute Tonic for the Heart, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But, they're all there to first and foremost, I always say this, when I write my books, they're primarily for me for a start, and then I share them with the world. They're normally like they're the answers to my research of seeking for answers. They're the answers to, me, seeking God and praying and scouring through the Bible and saying, what's the solution for this particular situation? So that's how I kind of deal with my life. And eventually I put it on paper and I share it with everybody else. But, find a tool that you can use. And, I without plugging my own book, but this is a powerful book that can support you. As I said, this was not so much about me as much it was about showcasing the lives of who I'm calling bounce back heroes, and really unpicking their lives and seeing some of the things that they did that helped them moving forward. And from that, I actually created 10 bounce back principles. So there are 10 principles in here whereby you need to apply to support you. Now, some of them I've shared about 2 or 3 in our conversation here, but through the book, and then in the book itself, it has lots of reflective questions. There's lots of exercises that you can do, but and I've divided the book into surviving. That's section 1. Part 2 is thriving, and part 3 is maximizing. But you really do well to have a look at the 10 bounce back principles, because they are things that I'm applying to my own life every day to support me, making sure that I am standing strong, and I am I'm not going to say I'm unmovable and unshakable, but I know with God I can be, but it helps me just stay grounded, helping me flip that adversity on its head, helping me keep the end in mind, and helping me be determined that regardless of what I'm facing, I'm going to move forward. So I'm hoping that was, that's use to you in terms of moving forward. By all means, grab a copy of the book. I'll share some links. It's at gladysf.com/shop. I will share the links with you and how you can get that information. But also, I've offered a sample chapter, or a couple of chapters of the book. Now, I will share with you just a link where you can grab that. Let me just see. Where is that link that I'm looking for? Just bear with me and I will get you information. Okay, so it's a bit.ly link. Let me just copy that and I'll just share that with you. Hopefully you can see. Okay, so there's a link there. Okay. If you go to that website there, just a web page, and put your details in, that information will come to you. You can get a couple of sample chapters of the book, Bouncing Back. And you can start, I think goes all the way up to chapter 1 or chapter 2 with a lot of introduction and the preface and whatnot. And I believe that would support you in terms of moving forward. And also, if you decide to want to get the full book itself, and I highly recommend it, and I'm not just saying that, again, there's a link in there where you can actually purchase that book. And for those who make the purchase, there is going to be so remember I said this to you earlier on. The way God deals with me is really strange, because when I'm in the fire myself, I gain strength to quickly create something to help other people. Now, would you believe it or not, it was just a month after my sister passed away, and I just felt this urge to create a course. I called it the Bounce Back course, to help people. Now, it was just the strength of God. I can't even take any credit myself. The strength of God that enabled me to do that. And so for those who purchased the book as a result of this particular Facebook Live, you will have an opportunity to get that course at a very discounted price. If you get the sample chapter, I will send you some more information about it. And I'm also going to be offering some other perks. I've got a bounce back declaration that I declare to myself based on the 10 bounce back principles. Again, that's going to be available for those who purchase the book, as well as some other little goodies as well. So, so there's lots of things that I'm looking to make available to you. Again, these are just tools to support you. So if all fails, get the sample chapter, have a read. If you like what you see, get the book itself, or better still, just go and just, an investment of $9.99 plus shipping. You get that opportunity to get some resources to support you. But it's a fantastic tool, and I'm really going to be building on this particular book, especially in this season, because I think we all need something to help us bounce back when the dust of COVID-19 settles. And I really pray that that's been a support to you. There are going to be more Facebook Lives. I believe there's a bell somewhere when you log in, when you are watching. Feel free to click the bell or whatever it is to be alerted whenever I'm doing other sessions like this. And then you can get further support to support you in moving forward. So it's been a pleasure to have you. Once again, my name's Gladys Famoriyo, author, speaker, coach, author of the book like Bounce Back, Healing a Discouraged Heart, Quit Hiding, Start Living, and my first baby, or second baby actually. I've written 7 books, but this is my second one, Overcoming Emotional Baggage. And there's 1 minute tonic for the heart, which I didn't bring here today, but I'll bring it another time. But I pray that whatever situation you're going through, that you get the strength of God to persevere, to flip adversity on its head, to be determined, to keep the end in mind. I pray if you're in a situation where you're unwell as a result of the COVID virus or any other sickness, I pray, drop me a line. I'm a praying woman. By all means, drop me a line, and I will keep you in my prayer list. But I want to pray with you now. I'm just going to say a general prayer for everybody, and I'm going to use it as a way to pray for all the other people who are going through challenging situations, as well as people who are going through difficult times as a result of the COVID virus in one way or the other. And so, Father, in the name of Jesus Christ, I pray for anybody who might be watching this in the future or whether it be now. I pray that your healing power touches them right now in the name of Jesus Christ. I pray for their healing. I pray for their restoration. And I pray, when I say healing and restoration, not just in their physical bodies, but in their spirits, souls, bodies, and minds, wills, emotions, in their financial affairs, in their businesses, in their education, and whatever it is that's been affected by the virus. I pray that somehow you give people the strength to stay uplifted regardless of what's going their way. And for those who are struggling, I pray that you send helpers or angels to support them in their journey. And I just say, Father, just heal and touch the lives of people, those who are watching this, and I cover them with your precious blood. And I thank you for their healing in Jesus' name. I'm just looking at a last statement here from Yinka. We all need something to help us bounce back when this COVID-19 blows away. Absolutely. In fact, my prayer is just blows away. It should just go, but we all need something. And I believe things have been reset. And I believe there will be some new norms in the future. But as I said, stay uplifted, flip adversity on its head, keep the end in mind, and be determined that you are going to get through this and shine. And don't forget, use your jar to help somebody else. Take care, God bless you, and stay tuned to the next one. Don't forget to get your sample chapters, and by all means, go on to buy the book if you want to. Take care. Bye.